We understand it still that there is no easy road to freedom. We know it well that none of us acting alone can achieve success. We must therefore act together as a united people for national reconciliation, for nation building, for the birth of a new world. Let there be justice for all. Let there be peace for all. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. I thank you.
I come because young people are such a fantastic group of people. You dream dreams. You dream dreams of a world that is without war. You dream dreams and you say, let us make poverty history.
My recollections of my encounter with English literature. They were depicted as definitely not European. They were incapable of creating a civilization or sustaining one. So you saw them in a very bad light. Mm-hmm. And this was very consistent.
Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi has been overthrown in a military coup. The country's constitution has also been suspended as the military acts on a 48-hour deadline set on Monday in wake of the massive protests that happened on June 30th, in which millions of people came to the streets demanding Morsi step down.
So what we did in the Greenbelt movement was to go to those grassroots, those bottom, and instead of trickling down, go to them and say, maybe should be a trickle up.
This area, before conservation, it was very much degraded. You can see now the seedlings that the trees that we have planted. In the whole of this area, we have planted about 1 million seedlings. Before we came in, people used to cut trees, even the small ones that were there. So with this kind of slope, the erosion was very severe. Now you can see the change.
I guess for me, I'm just going to start by telling you, I hope each one of you has a higher purpose. That's my whole reason of being in this world, having a higher purpose that's beyond myself. And what is that higher purpose of mine? It is this vision that I have for Africa to do well and be well. Because I'm from Senegal, west coast of Africa. What does it mean for me that Africa be well and does well? Well, do well by becoming an economic power in the world. And be well by being a cultural power in the world. That's my vision, and that's my goal for my continent.
We must raise our daughters differently. We must also raise our sons differently. We do a great disservice to boys in how we raise them. We stifle the humanity of boys. We define masculinity in a very narrow way. Masculinity becomes this hard, small cage, and we put boys inside the cage. We teach boys to be afraid of fear. We teach boys to be afraid of weakness, of vulnerability. We teach them to mask their true selves because they have to be, in Nigeria speak, hard man. Gender as it functions today is a grave injustice. We should all be angry. Anger has a long history of bringing about positive change. But in addition to being angry, I'm also hopeful, because I believe deeply in the ability of human beings to make and remake themselves for the better. Gender matters everywhere in the world, but I want to focus on Nigeria and on Africa in general, because it is where I know and because it is where my heart is. And I would like today to ask that we begin to dream about and plan for a different world, a fairer world.
I moved back to Kenya in 2011. Eric moved in 2010. Very different reality. I used to live in Chicago where there was abundant internet access. I'd never had to deal with a blackout. And in Kenya, it's a very different reality. And one thing that remains despite the leaps in progress in the digital revolution is the electricity problem. These revolutions have not been evenly distributed across continents and nations, never have been. What I find amazing is that Africa is transcending its geography problem. Africa is connecting to the rest of the world and within itself. The connectivity situation has improved greatly, but some barriers remain. It is with this context that Ushahidi came to be. After that initial prototype, we set out to make free and open source software so that others do not have to start from scratch like we did. All the while, we also wanted to give back to the local tech community that helped us grow Ushahidi and supported us in those early days. And that's why we set up the iHub in Nairobi, an actual physical space where we could collaborate, and it is now part of an integral tech ecosystem in Kenya.
Like many of you here, I am trying to contribute towards a renaissance in Africa. The question of transformation in Africa really is a question of leadership. Africa can only be transformed by enlightened leaders. And it is my contention that the manner in which we educate our leaders is fundamental to progress on this continent. So when I speak of leadership, I'm not talking about just political leaders. We've heard a lot about that. I'm talking about the elite, those who've been trained, whose job it is to be the guardians of their society. The lawyers, the judges, the policemen, the doctors, the engineers, the civil servants. Those are the leaders. I work at Microsoft Corporation. And I was part of this team, this thinking, learning team, whose job it was to design and implement new software that created value in the world. And it was brilliant to be part of this team. It was brilliant. And I realized just what had happened to me at Swarthmore, this transformation. The ability to confront problems, complex problems, and to design solutions to those problems, the ability to create is the most empowering thing that can happen to an individual. And I was part of that. Now, while I was at Microsoft, this funny thing happened. I became a parent, and for the first time, Africa mattered more to me than ever before, because I realized that the state of the African continent would matter to my children and their children, that the state of the world depends on what's happening to Africa.
And in the naked light, I'm restless. In my dreams, I long for you.